and welcome to Unpacking Activities. The activity we're going to unpack today is a classic, and that is a dictation. The teacher reads words or sentences, and the students are supposed to write it down. They are essentially transcribing what the teacher is saying. What are some positive aspects of dictation? The most obvious one is that it helps to strengthen the oral-written connection, what the words sound like and what the words look like written down. This could be particularly helpful for spelling. Another positive aspect is that it may promote noticing of forms. It may increase the likelihood that learners will notice forms in the input. Not only is the concreteness of the written word helpful to increase noticing, but having to write it down makes all forms more salient and therefore more noticeable, more memorable. Now, a potential pitfall related to this is that I keep saying noticing instead of processing. And that is because the learners may notice these forms, but if they're not attaching a meaning to these forms, then there is no processing. And as we saw in another video, we can define processing as making these form meaning connections. You can technically transcribe something word for word without actually understanding what you're writing down. Another potential pitfall has to do with logistics, and it involves how to provide feedback. Does the teacher collect everything and then revise or edit what the learners wrote? That can certainly take a while, and we can question how valuable that is. So what are some adjustments that you can make? Well, with respect to the logistical challenge of providing feedback, a better way to go about it, I think, is simply to display the text for the learners to see and compare with what they have written. Then they can self-edit. The biggest adjustment that I think is very, very important to keep in mind is that the dictation should not be it. The dictation should only be one portion of an activity. We need to incorporate something meaningful to do with the text either before the dictation or after the dictation. What can they do? Well, things like picture matching, true, false, ranking, essentially everything you can do with input. The key question is, how are we making sure that the learners are paying attention to the meaning of the words and not just the spelling of the words? So for example, in step 1, the teacher can read a sentence describing a picture. The students only listen and they try to figure out which picture it is. Now in step 2, the teacher is going to read the sentence again, and now the students are supposed to write it down underneath the corresponding picture. So they paid attention to meaning and then they engage in the dictation part. In this other example, the focus on meaning happens after the dictation. And this activity also serves as a pre-watching activity to help learners anticipate some of the content of a short film they're about to watch. The way it works is, first, the teacher reads a paragraph, which is a summary of what happens in the short film. But that summary is going to have some inaccurate details. The students don't know it yet because they haven't watched the film yet. All the students are supposed to do is write the summary word for word. That's the dictation part. And then the students are going to watch the short film. And then in step 3, the students work together to correct the parts of the summary that were inaccurate. And yet another example would be to do dictation of sentence stems, the first part of a sentence. So in step 1, the teacher reads, for example, if I were the teacher, if I were a dog. Once all of the dictation has been done, in step 2, the students complete each of these sentences. And in step 3, one student reads the second part they wrote, and another student says which stem that part goes with. And step 3 could be transformed into even more dictation by having that student write down that part next to the sentence stem that they think it goes with. Some possible variations of dictation are things that we unpacked in previous videos. A dictogloss is one form of doing dictation, and in a dictogloss, first the students listen and try to remember, and then they write. A paired close dictation is an activity that we unpacked in a previous video within Unpacking activities, and that is when one learner has some part of the text and the other learner has another part of the text, and they need to read it to each other to complete the text. And another variation is the running dictation, which looks a little bit more like a relay race. All in all, I know dictation is seen as something traditional, old-fashioned, but I think dictation has a lot of positive aspects that can actually help with language development. Of course, as usual, it all depends on how you implement it and how meaningful you make it. If you have any suggestions or alternatives, please write them in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.